845-362-0013 is our phone number. Terence Mitchell, he's my former sensei. He's still a sensei to lots of people. He used to train me. Sensei, exactly. From Trained Martial Arts in Bardonia, New York. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
The other night, there was this terrible incident at Garden State Plaza Mall.
Yes.
And one of the first things I thought of when you hear people running out of the mall and worried about what's going on, I started thinking about, and I have to say, Terence used to be my trainer. I used to take karate with him, and I developed, I got to be a yellow belt, made it all the way to yellow belt before I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry.
You did well.
Thank you, Uz. But I started thinking about some of the things you started teaching me about when you're in a situation where you need to protect yourself and where chaos can erupt, where you just take for granted that chaos will not erupt. Explain to me, when you find yourself in a situation like that, what can people do? What can people do when then all of a sudden they're shopping at a mall and all of a sudden people are flying by them going, there's a guy with a gun walking around, get out of here?
It's an excellent question. It's a question that many people think about when it's too late. The reality is the first thing we have to do is not panic. So we watch movies and TV shows all the time which depict all these different action scenes, and we never really take the time to think about the consequences and what's going on. So the reality is when the things happen like that and everyone stay glued to their TV and we get so frantic, we have to remember not to panic, keep our wits about ourselves, look around, see what we can do to avoid as much attention as possible. We don't want to create a scene where we add to the mayhem.
Because that seems to attract, like you say, you don't want to attract attention to yourself. You want to blend in and say, you know what, if there's someone walking around, I don't want to start getting involved. I don't want him to see me.
Exactly. Well, in the recent events that have been happening over the couple of years, we've been giving more and more attention to the criminal or the person that's creating this mayhem. And the problem is that more attention is being given to them than there is attention being given to safety measures. So I would.
You're talking about like the Boston the marathon bombing, for example. We dwell upon the perpetrators.
Right.
We dwell upon the guy in Colorado who was dressed up as the Joker and shot up the movie theater. I mean, we dwell upon those sorts of things.
So in those situations, if you're in a mall or in a public area, it is true you have to be aware of the exits. I would encourage you to slow down during the holiday season. Don't put yourself in such a rush to buy gifts and forget about the simple things like what the holiday is really all about. And once you start there, you can slow things down, you can relax, plan ahead, maybe go with a group of people so you're shopping together and you're not by yourself. It takes a little bit of time to look at the exits, to be aware of the traffic. If you see anything peculiar or weird, don't hesitate to look for a security guard or a police officer to help maybe clear things up if you see something that doesn't make sense to you.
362-0013 is our phone number if you have questions for Sensei Terence Mitchell from Trained Martial Arts in Bardonia on Route 304, very conveniently located right near the Rockland Bakery, if I remember correctly, not far from there.
And you should stay away from the bakery.
Yeah, you notice how I pinpoint things by food.
I did notice that.
It's also near the diner as well. It's not far from the diner, the Rockland Bakery. See, that's my problem.
I'm going to kill you, Jay.
Yeah, he didn't mean that.
I didn't mean that. Not on the radio station.
Now, you could try.
Okay. There's cameras.
When you talk about going to a mall and looking for exits and looking for things and being consumed by the rush of holiday shopping, and we all take that for granted. I remember back in the day when people were trying to get, what were they called? Those
Cabbage Patch Kids.
Cabbage Patch Kids, thank you, exactly. People were climbing over each other just to get those things, and that was at a time when a lot of these things, it just seemed, didn't happen.
Right.
If anyone got anywhere near your personal space at this point, people are very sensitive to that. But to your point, they don't know what to do if that happens.
Right.
Are there things that, let's say, someone gets too close to you, and someone is on top of you, and you've already decided, you've already gotten to the point where I can't get police at this point, I can't escape and make an exit. What can I do to prevent this person from keeping me from where I want to go?
Okay, well, there's a couple of steps. I wrote a book about self-defense called The Life Sensei's Guide to Self-Defense, which is be coming out in November.
Where is that found?
You will be able to find that on Facebook or my own website. You'll be able to purchase that at Trained2B.com, and it's going to be on your Kindles and apps and iPads and doohickeys and so forth, etc. But the paperback as well. But We'll break it down. The first thing is to remember that you have to decide whether you're going to be someone that's going to run or someone that's going to fight. So we usually call that fight or flight. Most people won't decide that if they're not trained. And so the average person, when something goes down, their natural instinct is the right instinct. Whether you decide to drop to the floor and try to create as little attention to yourself as possible, whether you decide to make a run for it, whatever the case may be, there are correct measures to take. So, for example, if someone comes out with a weapon and they ask everyone to get on the floor, or someone starts shooting, unfortunately, you want to drop to the floor and you do not want to create a lot of attention. Make sure all your limbs appear to be flat and your head is not raised so you don't create attention. But while you're doing that, you also want to be aware of what's going on. There may be an opportunity for you to get away. I would encourage all the gentlemen out there, if you're with a lady or with a child, to protect them. Lay flat over them. Again, you want to put yourself in a position where you're showing that you're not creating any distractions and you're not going to be a problem for the attacker. As well, if you are in a situation that you mentioned where you are being grabbed or accosted, it would behoove you to remember a couple of things. Anywhere where the sun doesn't shine are safe areas where you can hit the throat, the ears, the groin, where you can inflict harm, and you don't have to be a sensei to be successful. I would encourage you to, if you have the time, find a local martial arts school, or go online. There's plenty of different alternatives, as well as my book, where you can get a feel for what you should do when something like that would happen. 362-0013 if you have any questions for Sensei Terence Mitchell. He's here from Trained Martial Arts Studio in Bardonia, New York on Route 304. 362-0013. Now, watching some of the video, I didn't see any video from Garden State Plaza. I don't know if that's come out yet, but there was that incident in Kenya. I believe it was in Kenya, where there was a shopping mall where a bunch. Where a bunch of people survived, and you see a lot of heroic stories out of that. But you're talking about the different incidents, like in Boston, for example, or in the schools, or in the movie theater, shooting in Colorado. What happens? What goes through your mind? What can you do if you find yourself face to face with the guy, and in this case, the guy I'm talking about, whoever's doing the shooting. Right. I think there was a case where a teacher recently was confronted his student, in order to protect other students, lost his life in the process. But I mean, there's a time when you have to where you do have to act, and you do have to confront the person who's causing problems. How do you go about handling that? Well, the first thing I would recommend is to breathe. We're all human. Everyone has. We all have common nature. And what I would like to say by that is, if you can breathe and relax, keep your wits about you, it's going to play itself out. So the question, and that's a big challenge for some people, for most people, and certainly when you're in a crisis situation like that, I can't say that I would react the best, and lots of people can't. But thinking about these things, just trying to stay under control is a great thing to be able to do. Well, when I was 18, I worked at a sneaker store that was held up, and it was early Saturday morning, and before I knew it, I was laying flat on my stomach with a gun to the back of my head for over an hour and 45 minutes. I kept my calm because I'm a comedian. I cracked jokes with the guys that were holding up the place, and I let them know that I was not a threat to them. Of course, after everything happened, I went through the emotions that everyone would go through, fear, regret, anger, and I decided to do something about it. And my martial arts training has taught me that I can't control every situation. I definitely don't want to be in a situation like that again, but I'm now prepared, if I need to make quick reactions and to think on my feet. See, on one hand, with that situation in mind, you're here telling me and everybody else this story. Correct. On the other hand, you were beating yourself up, so to speak, for not doing something different. Exactly. How does that make you feel? I mean, even to this day. Well, like, looking back on that incident, what could you have done differently? Well, I actually did everything that I should have and could have done, which I'm happy about. I said my prayers. I made peace with my maker, and I put myself in a situation where if an opportunity did present itself, that I would have, if I had to flee, I would have done that. I wasn't in a position where I could have taken down two robbers at the time. Now that might be a little bit different, but you have to also weigh the options. Is it worth your life? And what I mean by that is, can you write it out? Are you dealing with a madman? If the person is shooting up the place or making insane demands, you might have to move a little bit faster than you would like to. Most of the time, because of the way that our society is, we put ourselves in a position where what we see in the movies and TV we believe is real. Unfortunately, there are sick people out there and people that have bad intentions. And again, if we put ourselves in a position where we keep our wits about us, slow things down, plan ahead, be proactive instead of reactive. Again, I feel like more of this attention should be brought on safety measures. If more schools would teach fitness and self-defense as opposed to advocating iPads and video games, we would put ourselves in a position where the country and the world might be a safer place.
362-0013, that's our phone number, 362-0013. You bring up a good point. You mentioned about teaching self-defense in schools. To my knowledge, I don't think that's done.
No,
at all.
Not at all. And it scares me in a world, and especially where women are treated so unfairly. Women should definitely, and children should definitely be in a situation where they learn self-defense measures and they're able to take care of themselves.
The debate, particularly when it comes to the school shooting up in Massachusetts, the debate seems to have focused around, well, we need to have more guns in schools or we need more gun legislation.
Right.
Never has it come up, to your point, that, well, we need to be able to train our students and train our teachers and train whoever else might be in that environment on how they can, if they don't have a gun, how they can work their way out of it, or if they encounter someone who has a gun, work their way out of it. How do you go about getting that part of, if not a curriculum in a school, how do you go about getting that to be part of a person's everyday life?
Well, the scary thing is that most people think about these things after something happens. So I just opened up a bar recently in Nyack, and the first thing that I did was wanted to make everyone feel safe in the area. We went out of our way to add a dress code. We went out of our way to add a door host, and we wanted a nice, comfortable atmosphere where people was more like a New York atmosphere where people would know what they're getting into, an open-minded, cool, safe environment. And that actually attracts the right crowd. When you have the wrong crowd, they're going to be more attracted to doing bad things. And when you put yourself in a situation or an environment where people are looking to do bad things, more crime happens.
And you just jumped onto my next point, is that where do you go? What are some of the things that you advise people to do? I mean, there are some places, okay, yes, you have the freedom to go wherever you want to and whenever you want to, and that's great. But there are some places that if you think about it, are maybe not the best places I should be putting myself in at this particular time. How do you go about, what do you tell people to do as far as that's concerned?
Okay, well, the first thing, we obviously want to use our common sense, but we also want to use something called martial sense. And so everyone has a bad feeling. When you have that bad feeling, like a sixth sense, you should listen to it. I tend to find myself when I go to, I have Jets season tickets. When we go to the Jets games, I like to park next to the exit. I don't like to park in the center. I like to avoid the drunk crowd. I'll take the steps, going back to the fitness conversation you had earlier with the spin instructor. I like to take the steps instead of take the escalator. These are things that we can do. When you park your car at a mall, don't park your car in a dark area because you think that you're going to be able to get in and get out. That dark area can invite the wrong crowd. Better for you to park your car in a well-lit area with a group of people where people can see you and there's video cameras, so forth, etc.
Even if it means walking a little bit more before you get into the entrance.
Especially if it means walking a little bit more. Everyone can benefit from working out a little bit. It's not that far. And when you think about it, if you can slow down and enjoy your day and you're safer, that's better for everyone. 362-0013, just a few minutes left with Sensei Terence Mitchell with Trained Martial Arts in Bardonia, New York. Again, thank you for coming in. Thanks for having me.
Some of the things that you were talking about earlier remind me that one of the things that came up, Bill Cosby very famously made a statement many, many years ago, is when he was being critical of people who were doing bad things. Right. He said, well, nothing good happens at 3 o'clock in the morning, something to that effect.
Well, that's an excellent point. One of the things we did at the bar was we used to be open at 4, and now we actually are open till 2. If you want to come in after that, you need a password, kind of like a speakeasy environment. The reality was, at 4 o'clock, people are coming in, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. That's a little bit too early or late, depending on how you look at it, and that does attract the wrong crowd.
Terence, again, thank you for coming in. Tell me a little bit about where you mentioned you have some books coming out. Tell me a little bit about how we can find out some information about your training facility in Bardonia and where we can find these books. Okay. If you go online to Trained2B.com, that's the number 2, the letter B.com, you can find a lot about what I'm doing in terms of martial arts and the Life Sensei books. So the Life Sensei books, there's one on health, relationships, and self-defense. The self-defense one will be coming out soon in November. I also want to welcome everyone in Nyack. We have a new bar called The Night Owl, and our grand opening is November 16th. You can find me on Facebook. And where is that in Nyack? Where in Nyack? And that's Nyack, New York, on 4 South Franklin Street. Excellent. Very good. And a little bit about your facility. Do you give personal training? Is it classes? What do you do?
Yeah, I do it all. I've been around for a while now, and I've been, in the Rockland area.
I know that.
Yeah, and so we do personal training. We do private classes, group classes, whether it's boxing, karate, self-defense, kickboxing, so forth, etc. Yeah.
Excellent. Very good. And the website again is Trained2B,
Yes.
the number 2, the letter B, .com.
Yep.
Terence, thank you very much
Thank
for
you
coming
very
in.
much.
Good seeing you again.
I want to see you in class.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
All right. Sounds good.
3620013. Just a few more minutes left. We've got another guest coming up right after these messages. Don't go away.